Listen carefully, because sometimes the most powerful messages do not thunder through the skies, they whisper through silence. When the world grows loud and the mind races with questions, the voice of God does not compete. It waits, still, patient, eternal. I am Shihing Yi. Today, I will share a message that carries the quiet weight of truth. A message not written in books, but carved in the unseen spaces of your heart. The ancients knew the soul is not a battlefield, but a temple. And within this inner temple, God's voice echoes softly, like a bell that rings only when the world grows still enough to hear it. If this is true that God speaks, then the question is not whether he is silent, but whether you are listening. Through the lens of Shaolin wisdom, we will explore what it truly means to hear, not through your ears, but through presence, through awareness, through the discipline of stillness. In the temple, monks rise before dawn, not to escape the world, but to listen to it differently, to hear the silence behind sound, the lesson behind struggle. Today, I will show you how that same ancient discipline can help you hear the divine frequency that moves quietly through your own life. There are truths here that most overlook, lessons hidden between your thoughts, waiting for the one who is awake enough to notice. Stay until the end, because this message is not about belief, it is about recognition. You may realize that God has been speaking to you all along. Welcome to Shaolin Soulfire, where spirit meets discipline and silence becomes your greatest teacher. Subscribe and walk with me through the temple within. There is a silence that is not empty, it is alive. Within that silence, something ancient stirs, a presence that waits for you to notice it. Most people fear stillness because they mistake it for doing nothing. But in truth, stillness is the most active state of all. It is where life begins to reveal its hidden order. In the Shaolin Temple, we learn this not through theory but through the body. When you sit in meditation, your muscles tremble, your mind resists, your breath grows uneven. Yet beneath all of that movement, a deeper rhythm is waiting, steady, patient, eternal. That is where the divine begins to speak. The stillness you cultivate is not absence, it is awareness stripped of distraction. When the heart quiets, revelation has room to bloom. God's message often does not arrive in a flash of sound or a burning vision. It rises gently, like mist lifting from a mountain lake. One clear moment of inner quiet can reveal more truth than a lifetime of noise. In this state, even your smallest actions change meaning. Pouring water, walking, breathing, all become gateways to awareness. You begin to see that stillness is not a pause from life. It is life observed clearly. In my training, there were days I was told to do nothing but stand, motionless for hours. At first, the mind screamed, but after time, the body began to settle, and the world itself seemed to breathe with me. It was in that shared breath that understanding appeared. If this is true, if stillness is the soil of revelation, then do not rush to speak or move. Stand quietly before the sacred and let the message rise between your thoughts. The mind is like water. Wherever you pour it, that place begins to grow. Each thought you repeat, each image you hold, becomes a seed planted in the soil of your spirit. Over time, these seeds shape your inner landscape, peaceful or chaotic, luminous or dim. Shaolin masters often say, attention is the true weapon. They mean that mastery begins with the direction of your gaze, not your eyes, but your awareness. If your attention drifts endlessly toward distraction, fear, or comparison, then you feed those forces until they rule your life. But when you turn your attention inward, even for a moment, the battlefield changes. The enemy was never the world, it was the wandering mind. In the temple, there is a practice of walking meditation. Each step is deliberate, each breath synchronized. The outer path may be short, yet the journey inward is infinite. Every time the mind strays toward plans, memories, or restlessness, the monk gently brings it back, without judgment, without anger. That single act of returning, repeated 1,000 times, becomes the quiet forge of discipline. God's message often hides inside this act of return. When your thoughts scatter, it is a reminder, not a failure, a call to recenter. The divine whisper says, come back, here. Now, attention then is the gate through which revelation enters. What you choose to look at, think about, or dwell on determines the quality of your spiritual life. The world outside may remain loud and restless, but inside you can learn to keep the lamp steady. If this is true, that focus shapes reality, then your greatest battle is not with others, but with the mind that refuses to stay home. Freedom is a word many chase, yet few understand. Most believe it means doing whatever they wish, following every impulse, satisfying every craving. But the masters of old saw this differently. They taught that freedom without form becomes chaos, and that true liberation begins where restraint is honored. In the Shaolin temple, each day follows a rhythm, rising before dawn, eating in silence, training at precise hours, resting only when the work is complete. To the untrained eye, it looks like confinement. But within that structure, something miraculous happens. The noise of indecision fades, the chaos of desire quiets, and clarity begins to appear. The monk who once struggled against routine now moves effortlessly within it, discovering that discipline is not a cage, it is a key. This is the paradox of the spiritual path. By choosing limits, you dissolve the limitations that once ruled you. Every act of self-control, waking early, holding your tongue, finishing what you begin, strengthens the will, sharpens the mind, and purifies the heart. You become less ruled by your moods, more guided by intention. God's message often speaks through the patterns of discipline. It whispers, restrain the impulse, and you will see the truth beneath it. When you refuse to be led by every desire, space opens for the soul to breathe. In that quiet order, a higher freedom awakens, the freedom to act, not react, to choose, not chase. The wise understand that boundaries do not imprison the spirit, they protect it. Within self-chosen discipline lies a strength that no chaos can touch. If this is true, that discipline is freedom, then every small act of restraint is not punishment but power, a step toward mastering the vast kingdom within. The body is not a prison for the spirit. It is the temple through which the spirit speaks. Every breath, every movement, every heartbeat is a quiet dialogue between the visible and the invisible. The ancients knew that wisdom is not complete until it is lived, felt, and expressed through the body itself. In the Shaolin tradition, meditation and movement are one. The monk who sits in stillness and the monk who strikes in motion both seek the same truth, presence. When the body moves with awareness, it becomes a vessel for spirit. When it moves without awareness, it becomes a shadow of habit. True mastery then lies not in escaping the body, but in awakening fully within it. Each gesture carries meaning. A bow is not mere formality, it is humility embodied. A controlled breath is not routine, it is the shaping of life force, the honoring of divine rhythm. Through training, posture becomes prayer, motion becomes meditation, and even silence becomes song. Modern minds often separate the sacred from the physical, believing that enlightenment belongs to the intellect. Yet the body remembers what the mind forgets: how to align, how to ground, how to surrender. When you walk, eat, or breathe with full attention, you return to that remembrance. God's messages are not only heard in words or visions, they ripple through sensation, the steady pulse, the rise and fall of the chest, the warmth in stillness. To feel deeply is to listen deeply. If this is true, that spirit lives through flesh, then neglecting the body is neglecting the message itself. Care for it as you would tend a sacred flame, for every mindful breath keeps the connection between heaven and earth alive within you. Every journey toward mastery begins not with conquering the world, but with confronting what lies within. The greatest battles are not fought on mountains or in temples, but in the unseen landscape of the mind. Ancient wisdom calls these forces the 5 hindrances, subtle yet powerful shadows that block the light of awareness: desire, doubt, laziness, anxiety, and restlessness. Desire seduces the heart with endless hunger. It tells you that fulfillment lives somewhere outside yourself. Doubt whispers that you are not capable, not ready, not enough. Laziness dulls the flame of purpose, convincing you that comfort is safer than growth. Anxiety scatters the mind into 1,000 futures that never come. And restlessness, the most deceptive of all, disguises itself as energy while secretly pulling you away from peace. The Shaolin path teaches that these hindrances cannot be destroyed by force. They must be recognized, understood, and transformed. The monk sitting in meditation does not fight his distractions. He observes them until their power fades. Each time awareness returns to stillness, a chain breaks. God's message often arrives as confrontation, not to punish, but to reveal. When you feel resistance rising, when your thoughts pull you from your center, that is the divine mirror showing where healing is needed. To name your hindrance is to shine light into the hidden corners of your being. Once seen clearly, these inner enemies lose their grip. What was once an obstacle becomes a teacher. What once bound you now builds you. If this is true, that awareness dissolves resistance, then your work is not to escape the struggle, but to stay present within it. For only in facing your shadows can you discover the strength of the light that never leaves you. There is a wisdom that lives between all opposites, a quiet, steady truth that neither clings nor rejects. The ancients called it the middle way. It is not a path of compromise, but of clarity, the art of moving through life without being pulled to either extreme. In this balance, the spirit finds peace, and the mind finds strength. In the Shaolin tradition, the middle way is lived, not just taught. The monk trains with intensity, but rests with equal devotion. He eats enough to sustain, but never to excess. He speaks when needed and keeps silence when words would only disturb the stillness. Each action becomes a lesson in harmony. Not too much, not too little, but precisely what the moment requires. Extremes are tempting because they feel certain. Indulgence promises pleasure. Denial promises purity. Yet both lead to imbalance. The one who chases every desire becomes lost in chaos. The one who rejects all pleasure becomes hard, disconnected from the beauty of living. Wisdom is found not in excess or abstinence, but in awareness, in the gentle ability to adjust one's course without judgment. God's voice often speaks through this quiet balance. It does not shout from either side of extremes. It whispers in the center, guiding you toward alignment. When you listen closely, you sense it, that inner compass nudging you back each time you lean too far. The middle way is not stillness without movement. It is movement guided by stillness. It asks you to act but without attachment, to feel but without drowning. If this is true, that harmony is holiness, then your task is not to chase perfection, but to walk the narrow line between opposites with grace, awareness, and a heart at peace. There is a quiet strength in those who know how to let go. The world often praises holding on to dreams, people, plans, and possessions. But the deeper path teaches something far subtler, that true power lives in release. What you cling to begins to own you. What you bless and release becomes part of your freedom. In the Shaolin way, life is seen as a flowing river. You cannot grasp the water without losing it through your fingers. The monk learns to meet each moment with open hands, receiving what arrives, releasing what departs. This is not indifference, it is wisdom. To hold too tightly is to create suffering, for all things in this world are meant to move, transform, and return. Letting go is not weakness, it is mastery. It takes courage to trust that what is meant for you will remain, and what leaves has already served its purpose. The training hall teaches this lesson daily. A breath is taken, then released. Tension builds, then softens. Movement peaks, then returns to stillness. Everything follows this rhythm: expansion and return, gain and loss, inhale and exhale. God's message often comes in this rhythm too. It does not demand that you force outcomes, but invites you to surrender to divine timing. When you stop resisting, clarity appears. When you stop grasping, peace enters. The heart that lets go does not lose, it expands. Release creates space for new light to enter, for new strength to grow. If this is true, that surrender is freedom, then every act of letting go is an offering. Each time you release control, you return a little closer to harmony with the sacred flow that has been guiding you all along. There is a subtle harmony between what lies within and what is expressed without. True mastery is not found in retreat from the world, but in walking through it with integrity, letting inner truth shape every motion, word, and decision. When spirit and action are aligned, life itself becomes a form of teaching. In Shaolin practice, this principle is not abstract. Every strike, block, and stance is a reflection of the mind and heart. Strength alone is hollow. Only when action mirrors virtue does it carry meaning. Weekday, martial virtue is cultivated not for recognition but for the expression of inner clarity. A controlled movement, a mindful step, a disciplined breath, each communicates the state of the soul. God's message often arrives in subtle ways, urging alignment between intention and expression. When thoughts are scattered or values compromised, actions falter. When the inner compass is steady, even the simplest gesture can ripple outward with profound effect. Life then becomes a living sermon, a mirror of what is held sacred within. Consider the monk who tends the garden or sweeps the temple floor. There is no audience, no acclaim, yet every motion is deliberate, reflecting patience, humility, and focus. The world may see ordinary tasks, but each act resonates with deeper mastery. If this is true, that inner alignment gives power to action, then every choice you make matters. Your words, your work, your presence, they all echo the state of your spirit. In this way, life is not separate from teaching, it is the teaching itself. Each action becomes a signpost, pointing to the harmony cultivated within, guiding others through the quiet strength of example. The path to mastery is rarely swift. It winds through hardship, doubt, and repeated failure. Those who seek wisdom soon learn that the true test is not in moments of ease, but in the long, quiet stretches where perseverance is demanded. The Shaolin way calls this perseverance, the inner fortitude to rise again and again when the body tires and the spirit wavers. In the training hall, a student falls countless times while learning a single form. Each fall teaches patience, humility, and the strength to begin anew. It is not the flawless performance that shapes the mind, but the repeated effort, the refusal to surrender to frustration or fatigue. Even the smallest step, taken consistently, becomes the foundation of mastery. God's message often arrives as challenge, as obstruction, as a moment that tests whether you will endure or yield. These tests are not meant to punish, but to reveal the depth of your inner strength. When life presses against you, it is an invitation to stand, to persist, to refine the spirit through action, not complaint. Resilience is born in these quiet battles. It is the calm that follows struggle, the clarity that comes from navigating uncertainty without losing center. Every setback becomes a teacher, every difficulty a mirror reflecting areas where the soul must grow. If this is true, that life's purpose is not perfection, but perseverance, then the road itself is sacred. Each day of effort, each small act of courage becomes part of a lifelong cultivation. Mastery is not an arrival, it is the unfolding moment by moment of discipline, resilience, and unwavering commitment to the way. The long road asks only for steadfastness, and through steadfastness, the spirit becomes unshakable. There is a stillness that comes after words have been spoken, a quiet space where meaning sinks deep into the bones. Messages from the divine rarely demand instant action. They wait patient for the mind and heart to receive them fully. To rush is to scatter their power. To act too quickly is to dilute their truth. In the Shaolin tradition, the period after exertion is sacred. After hours of training, the body rests, the mind reflects, and the spirit absorbs what the day has taught. This pause is not idle. It is the bridge between effort and understanding. The lessons of movement, discipline, and endurance are not complete until they are held in stillness. Reflection allows insight to emerge naturally without force, like ripples settling on a pond. Divine messages operate in the same rhythm. A whispered truth, a subtle intuition, or a sudden clarity requires space to integrate. It is in this silence that the heart discerns what is essential, what must be nurtured, and what can be released. The mind may urge action, but wisdom says, wait. Let the message echo, let it settle into marrow, let it reshape the inner world before it touches the outer. Consider the monk who completes a demanding form. each movement precise, each stance grounded, and then he sits in stillness, letting the experience become part of his being. Without this reflection, the effort is incomplete. With it, transformation occurs. If this is true, that silence after hearing is sacred, then every pause is a gift. Every moment of quiet allows understanding to deepen, clarity to arise, and action to align with truth. The world may call for haste, but the soul knows the richest wisdom waits in the space between hearing and doing. A single word, a single insight can ripple through time long after it is first spoken. The messages we receive from the divine are not meant to end with us. They are living echoes, carried forward through every thought, every choice, every act. What enters the heart transforms the life, and in turn touches the lives of others. In the Shaolin tradition, teachings are never kept for oneself. The wisdom of countless generations passes through the hands and hearts of those who are ready. A master guides, a student absorbs, and in time, that student becomes a guide. Each lesson, once received, becomes a bridge to the next soul, a living thread in the vast tapestry of human understanding. The same principle applies to the messages you receive today. They are not contained in thought alone. They seek expression in how you live, in how you respond to challenges, in the patience, courage, and compassion you show. When you act in alignment with these truths, you carry the message outward without fanfare. Every small act of awareness becomes a signal to the world. Every word spoken in kindness becomes a note in the eternal echo. God's message is both intimate and universal. While it arrives for your guidance, it also calls you to be a vessel. The awareness, the clarity, the quiet strength you cultivate is meant to circulate, touching lives in ways you may never see. If this is true, that life itself can be the continuation of divine speech, then every moment becomes sacred. Every decision, every interaction, every expression of integrity is part of a living sermon. The echo does not end with understanding, it expands with action. In this way, the message you receive today continues to resonate, long after the original words fade, becoming a timeless current that moves through the hearts of all who are willing to listen. As we close this journey, remember that the voice of God is always present, waiting in the quiet spaces of your mind and heart. Through stillness, focused attention, disciplined practice, and embodied awareness, you can hear what is often hidden beneath the noise of daily life. The challenges you face, the extremes you resist, the moments you release, all become part of your path toward mastery. Every message you receive is an invitation to pause, to reflect, to integrate its wisdom, and to let it shape not just your thoughts, but your actions. Your life can become the living echo of divine truth, a testament to the harmony between inner alignment and outward action. Carry these lessons into your daily life. Face distractions with calm, act with intention, and nurture the balance between effort and surrender. Let perseverance guide you, and let reflection deepen your understanding. In this way, the wisdom you encounter becomes not just knowledge, but a way of living. Thank you for sharing this time in quiet reflection and learning. May your days be filled with clarity, strength, and the steady presence of awareness. If this message resonated with you, join our community at Shaolin Soulfire. Subscribe and walk with us on this path of inner mastery, ancient wisdom, and living alignment. Let the silence speak, and let your life become the message.